By the time the calendar turns to 2026, a chapter many believed was permanently closed may quietly begin to reopen. 6 years after stepping away from royal duties and forging a new life thousands of miles from London, Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, may be edging closer to a return to the country that shaped one half of their union and once stood at the center of their public identity. While no formal announcement has been made and no official plans have been confirmed, mounting signs suggest that Britain is once again becoming part of the Sussexes' long-term vision. Friends, observers, and those familiar with royal patterns describe a shift that feels less dramatic than their 2020 exit, but potentially just as historic. If 2020 was defined by rupture, 2026 may be remembered as a year of recalibration. A relationship with Britain that never fully ended. Despite their physical distance from the United Kingdom, Prince Harry's emotional ties to Britain have never been severed. Raised within royal traditions, military service, and deeply rooted friendships, Britain remains more than a birthplace. It is the foundation of his identity. Even during the most strained moments between Harry and the royal family, the prince continued to return for major events, funerals, coronations, court proceedings, and charity commitments. Each visit, while brief and carefully managed, reinforced an underlying truth: Britain has remained a gravitational force in Harry's life. For Meghan, the relationship has been more complex. Her early years as a working royal were marked by intense scrutiny and cultural adjustment, followed by a highly publicized departure that reshaped global conversations around race, media treatment, and modern monarchy. Yet time has a way of softening absolutes. What once felt impossible can, years later, feel merely complicated. By 2026, the Sussexes will have been living outside the royal system longer than Meghan was ever inside it. That passage of time may prove crucial. Why 2026 feels different? Several factors converge to make 2026 a uniquely plausible year for a return, whether partial, symbolic, or more permanent. First, timing. Their children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, will be older, more adaptable, and approaching stages of education that naturally prompt reassessment of long-term family plans. Questions about schooling, cultural grounding, and identity grow more pressing as children mature. Second, distance has changed the emotional temperature. The rawness that followed their departure has gradually cooled. While disagreements and unresolved tensions remain, they exist now within a landscape shaped more by acceptance than shock. Third, the monarchy itself has evolved. A new era has settled in, defined less by spectacle and more by consolidation. As the institution adjusts to changing public expectations, space has quietly opened for alternative forms of participation, less rigid, less constant, and more flexible. Within this evolving framework, a return to Britain does not necessarily mean a return to royal duty as it once existed. Redefining coming back. Crucially, any move back would almost certainly defy traditional expectations. Insiders stress that this would not be a reinstatement, reconciliation tour, or revival of the Sussexes' former roles. Instead, the picture that emerges is subtler. A base in Britain rather than a full relocation. Extended stays instead of permanent residence. A private family life conducted largely away from palace walls. Occasional appearances tied to shared values rather than institutional obligation. Prince Harry has long expressed a desire to raise his children with an understanding of their heritage. Britain offers not only royal history but also personal memory, school days, military service, friendships forged long before global fame reshaped his life. For Meghan, a return on her own terms would mark a significant reclaiming of narrative. No longer the newcomer navigating palace protocol, she would arrive as an established public figure with independent projects, financial autonomy, and global recognition. The power dynamics would be fundamentally different. Security and the question of safety. One of the most significant obstacles to a sustained return has been security. Prince Harry has been vocal about his concerns regarding protection for his family while in the UK, framing the issue as both personal and principled. By 2026, this question may find new resolution, not necessarily through full restoration of state-funded security, but via a hybrid approach that balances public interest with private responsibility. Observers note that as public attention stabilizes and media intensity shifts elsewhere, the practical risks may lessen. Additionally, the family's increased experience managing privacy and exposure may enable more predictable, controlled movement within Britain. Security, once a deal-breaker, could become manageable. A new chapter for family relationships. Perhaps the most closely watched aspect of any return would be its impact on family dynamics. Prince Harry's relationships within the royal family have been strained, sometimes publicly, sometimes privately. Yet even strained families evolve. Time creates space for perspective, boundaries, and selective engagement. A return to Britain does not automatically imply reconciliation, but it does create opportunity. Opportunities for quieter interactions. For private moments removed from global headlines. For the next generation to know one another not through news coverage, but shared experiences. The presence of children often changes the tone of long-standing disputes. Grandparents, cousins, and extended family can serve as bridges where adults once stood firmly apart. If 2026 marks increased time in Britain, it may also mark the beginning of a less adversarial, more distant but civil familial era. Public perception, from polarization to nuance. Public opinion surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan has long been divided. Early years were defined by sharp polarization, with supporters and critics often talking past one another. But public narratives rarely remain static. As years pass, the drama that once dominated headlines fades, replaced by a broader understanding of complexity. Audiences accustomed to constant novelty have moved on, allowing space for reassessment rather than reaction. A return in 2026 would likely be met with less intensity than a similar move would have provoked in 2021 or 2022. The story would still be significant, but no longer explosive. In many ways, that quietness may be precisely what makes it possible. Professional lives rooted elsewhere, but not exclusively. Professionally, the Sussexes have built lives that extend far beyond Britain. Media ventures, philanthropic initiatives, and business projects remain largely centered in the United States and international markets. This does not preclude a British presence. In fact, a transatlantic lifestyle aligns naturally with their global positioning. Prince Harry's long-standing commitments to veterans' causes and mental health initiatives have strong roots in the UK. Meghan's advocacy work, once constrained by royal neutrality, now enjoys broader expression. Britain could serve as a cultural anchor rather than a professional base, an emotional home without becoming a professional constraint. The symbolism of belonging. Symbolism matters deeply in royal narratives, even when official roles have been relinquished. A return to Britain, however modest, would symbolize continuity rather than capitulation. It would suggest that departure did not mean exile, and independence did not require abandonment. For Prince Harry, it would affirm that carving a new path did not erase the old one. For Meghan, it would signal that her story with Britain is unfinished, and not defined solely by its most difficult chapters. For the monarchy, it would quietly demonstrate adaptability, the ability to coexist with difference rather than demand conformity. The children at the center. Ultimately, the most compelling reason 2026 feels pivotal lies with Archie and Lilibet. As they grow, questions of identity will inevitably arise. They are American by upbringing, British by heritage, and globally recognized by birth. Navigating that complexity requires intention. Time in Britain offers context. Not pageantry, but perspective. Not duty, but understanding. Allowing the children to experience Britain beyond headlines, parks, countryside, ordinary moments, could ground their sense of self in ways no explanation ever could. Parents often reconsider past decisions through the lens of their children's futures. In that light, a return feels less like a reversal and more like evolution. A return without a script. What makes the prospect of 2026 particularly intriguing is its lack of clear choreography. There is no precedent for this kind of return. No template. It will not look like royal re-entry. It will not resemble exile undone. It will be something quieter, more modern, and deeply personal. A family choosing proximity without surrender. Presence without performance. In a world accustomed to grand royal gestures, this understated approach may feel unfamiliar, but it reflects the Sussex's journey more honestly than spectacle ever could. The long view. History tends to compress complex lives into neat narratives. But lived experience is rarely neat. Prince Harry and Meghan's relationship with Britain has been defined by love, pain, conflict, loyalty, and longing, sometimes all at once. Distance was necessary. Independence was essential. But permanence was never guaranteed.